Great, let's keep on moving here. Marianne Fleischer is a speechwriter and presentations coach, a former TV newscaster and producer. She now coaches leaders to think on their feet. Marianne, take it away.
So I am so ready for these lights. Of course, I can't see you at all. Magically appear. So I was heading home from New York City. And we're all San Franciscans here, and let's be honest, there's a rivalry between East Coast, West Coast. It goes way back, and you know, some of it's warranted, some of it's not. But when we think of New York, sometimes we think, well, it's so big, it's so noisy, and haven't you had some New Yorkers pat you on the head and say, oh yes, that little town, San Francisco. But still, we're impressed, right? It's New York, it's Statue of Liberty, what are you going to do? So my story was in 2001. It was a time when Obama was president, when people still liked Giuliani, and Trump, well, he was a realtor. 2001, this was me. I was posing, trying to look cool, and this fakey pose I was doing. And I was working in television at the time, and it was a wonderful ride. These slides are going very fast. I was on assignment for Esquire magazine, and frankly thinking, really, Esquire hired me? But I went along with it, and there was 6 of us, and we were doing, they were moving into video, and so we were doing things on career and fashion and wine, all the things Esquire does. So again, I was traveling to New York City, and we've all been there. We know what it's like to be on a plane. It's sardines. There's always some guy, you know, putting your seat back and somebody kicking you from the back. That's travel. We know that. So I was traveling, and suddenly the flight attendant goes, New York City has been hit. The World Trade Center has been hit. And of course, we're like, what? Wait, what is this? We couldn't believe it. And there was confusion, and someone was saying, well, it could have been terrorists. And in fact, as you well know, the Twin Towers were hit. And these images are burned into our brain, especially the one on the left. Is there anything more hurtful than seeing those people think their only choice was to jump out of their window, office workers like you and me? Well, we were gobsmacked, stunned, thrown. How could this happen to us? If you remember this, it was like it was unreal, like it wasn't really happening. And of course, I was traveling right there. I was right in the vortex. I was in the air at 8:46 when it happened. So I think the next thing was, everyone thought, why were we hit? Aren't we the good guys? Aren't America the good guys? Remember that feeling of lost innocence? I'm feeling emotional just thinking about it. Our flight attendant came back on and said, look, we're going to have to land. We just have to land. We have to get out of the airspace. And the pilot came on and he said, no planes are going to be allowed in the sky. We've got to just pick a city and land anywhere. So, okay, except people were saying, well, wait a minute, I have a wedding to go to. I have an important meeting to go to. But they dumped us in St. Louis. To make matters worse, they said, all the hotels are booked, all the rental cars are booked, and hey, you're on your own. Sorry. The airlines was saying, you're on your own, sorry. Well, I think if you could hear a soundtrack to this, you would hear a song of somebody singing, someday my prince will come. Because suddenly, this guy stepped up, a fellow passenger, and he said, hey, I live here. You guys can come home with me. And I said, well, I don't know about that. And then this other guy spoke up, and I'll call him Chivalrous Sam, and he said, hey, why don't I go too? And my family's in Kansas City. I could take a bus, but I'll go with you, Marianne. We'll all go together. So I had this decision. Do I stay? Do I go? The hotels are booked. The airlines, I can't get out. But what am I going to do? I mean, I don't know these guys. I just go home with two strange men. My family's calling. What are you doing? Don't go. I had to make a decision. I had to leave. And so I decided. I just went home to the burbs with two guys I didn't know from Adam and lived with them for a couple of days. And like everyone, we glued to the TV, and it was a god-awful house in the tiniest little tract in a terrible neighborhood, but it was a palace to me because it was refuge. And I think it taught me that heroes can come in many disguises. And who I called Scary Bob, well, he opened his house to me. He didn't know me from Adam. I could have been a crazy town. And Sam just came out of nowhere and said, I'll go too, giving me a wink, like, I got you. And I wondered, in hindsight, why did I leap? Why did I go with these two guys? And I think it's because, in some part, because of improv, one of my hobbies. And they have some insights on fear. There's many insights, but I'll move on from here. But science teaches us some other things about fear. And they teach us that when we're afraid, our sugar goes way down, and we can't, we lose memory. We lose memory. And also, we have an adrenaline rush. There's things that happen to our body, and we just have to run with it. So while I was thinking, oh my God, what am I going to do, living with these three guys, suddenly I remembered my friend had a sister that lived in St. Louis, and everyone called her the nurse because she was a fixer. One call, and the nurse swooped in, came in and said, I got you, let's go. So I went back and stayed with her for 2 days, and then the planes were running and I could get out. But I think what I really learned on 9/11 was the kindness of strangers. You've got to sometimes just trust the kindness of strangers. Thank you.